There are three nevers to getting older in Hollywood. Never audition first thing in the morning. Never try to play a character half your age. And even if your leading man is prettier than you are, never, never let him see you sweat.
When the spotlight's on, no other solid keeps you drier than Dry Idea Solid.
Believe me, Dry Idea handles sweat a whole lot better than some people handle birthdays.
Dry Idea, never let them see you sweat.
And I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to defend it against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele, Backwoods Southern lawyer. Got my partners, Mr. Paul Rip, with me here today. How are you, Mr. Rip?
Very good. Glad to be back. Sorry I missed y'all last week.
And Mr. Russian, you chilling in the garage out there in Houston?
I don't know if chilling's the operative term, but close enough.
Close enough. So, Giuliani appeared before the press yesterday. And it was like an hour long, wasn't it? I mean, it was a while.
Almost an hour and a half.
Yeah. And so we got to see whatever black goose keeping him alive running out of his temple. What is it? Is it hair product?
It's hair dye, yeah.
And, you know, when you're standing in front of a crowd of people advocating for the president who, you know, just that day we rolled over 250,000 dead Americans, or 252,000 as of right now, you know, that's a tough spot to be in. And especially someone who hasn't practiced law in many years.
Yeah, but his mascara held up.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was heading with that. It was a tough day for Giuliani. So,
as well as probably about 18 lawsuits that have been thrown out so far, some of which Giuliani's been chastised
30.
by the judges.
30 of them.
30
lawsuits have been dismissed so far.
And Giuliani was chastised by the judges being so juvenile in his presentation and everything. That went over well.
So, Raines, yesterday we had a real treat from the White House task force, seeing as we, like I said, rounded the curve with 250,000 dead in this country. How long has it been since they've had a task force briefing?
October.
Is that right?
Beginning of October.
Seems like it's been a while since we've heard from them. So
it is.
What you heard?
I heard help is on the way. Don't worry. It's not a big deal. We've reduced the fatality rate among people over 70 years old. So we've done a great job. That's what I heard. I heard more political positioning, more political pandering, more garbage from the White House and their bullshit coronavirus task force, which has done absolutely nothing to stop the spread of this
Let's
virus.
listen to the scarf lady for a second. Mute your mic for me for a sec.
The next slide shows our increase in test positivity. The light brown bars are the number of tests that were performed. But even with the number and ever increasing number of tests performed, you can see the increase in test positivity to around 10%. In some areas of the country, it is much higher than that. And it illustrates the ongoing community spread in your counties, in your small and large metros. It could be more supportive.
So that little arrow,
really a
Paul.
call to action for every American to increase their vigilance because of the graphic that is shown here. Wanted to show you the difference in slopes between the spring surge, the summer surge.
We are all in this together. And as I've said many times from this podium over many, many months, with our incredible doctors. Thank you all.
Well, I think the press corps was a little enthralled with them. What do you think, Raines? Remember, your mic's off. Unmute me.
You know, the press corps that remains in the White House briefing room is only about 3/4 journalists now. The rest of them are propaganda tools from propaganda platforms like OANN and Newsmax. The press corps, of course, wants to answer questions because they want to have these answers from the White House, something besides the narrative drivel that's coming out of this administration.
And Newsmax has signed up, or not signed up, but picked up a couple million viewers that have all jumped ship from Fox since Fox recognized Biden as winning.
That's absolutely correct. People are turning against Fox News. Last night, Tucker Carlson said it looks like that Joe Biden's going to be the next president, and they're just dropping like flies because the people that can't get their heads around the fact that this person, that their leader of their cult has lost a duly certified election, they're moving on to a place where they can into a giant echo chamber of propaganda where they've been for the last 4 years. And they're just moving into that space to feel more comfortable. And, you know, I wish they would just all fall down the deep mud holes so we don't have to hear from them ever again.
Well, it's the same individuals that don't believe in global warming, don't believe in
and they think because you and I haven't seen these 57,164,742 global cases personally, that we're just reading numbers off of a computer screen. That's what they think. So that's the total number of global confirmed cases, with 1,364,959 deaths, 11,743,780 cases in the United States, with 252,861 deaths.
The numbers don't lie.
And neither does this trend bar over here, which shows the direction that we're heading. Any idea why people have a hard time wrapping their brains around that, Raines?
Because they don't want to. That's it. They don't want to acknowledge it. They don't want to believe it. They're part of a cult. That cult has indoctrinated them into believing that it's not real, into believing that it's not serious, and they don't want to believe it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to understand it. That's all there is to it.
And the thing that gets me is they are so adamant about not accepting that this is real that they don't even believe their own doctors, their own hospitals, their own nurses, their own first responders, all of who are trying to wear a mask and stay safe. And then you have these people walking around that just don't believe in it. Because they don't believe in it, they may be exposing somebody else. So, you know, it just goes right along with all the other things that they do not believe. You can put these people in one category.
So Paul wasn't here last time, but the bombshell dropped that the state of Alabama was going to have to send back $1 billion of unspent federal money designated for COVID response in the state of Alabama, if not spent by December 31st. So Governor Ivey introduced his new COVID-19 grant program with short application window. Revive Plus is where they're going to park $200 million as part of a grant program. And if you have 50 employees or fewer, you'll be awarded a grant of up to $20,000 for expenses that have been incurred due to operational interruptions caused by the pandemic and related business closures. There's still no website for this. As soon as it's up, we'll throw it up on Backstory Podcast.
Let me just throw a little math at y'all real quick. Get your calculators out. What fraction of $1 billion is 200 million?
1 point.
It's 1/5.
1/5.
Right? It's 20%. It's 1/5. The state of Alabama is faced with having to give back $1 billion in unused money for COVID relief. And you know what I have to say to that? Great. Go ahead and give it back because you didn't spend it. So give it back to the government. All you hardcore GOP folks, you're not tax and spend Democrats. So just because it's there don't mean you have to spend it.
Right.
Send it back. If you're not going to use it, send it back and tell the people of Alabama, you don't need government money to get through COVID. And you definitely don't need the great state of Alabama telling you how to live your life or to any of those things that, oh, and we're definitely not going to do something so incredibly socialist as to put money in your pocket for relief. Send the money back, Governor Ivey.
That's designated for people with, that need 20 grand real quick. Our buddies.
Yeah.
People
Well,
that give us money.
well, when you get that 1,200 back and you're so adamant, send that 1,200 back as individuals too. See how much of that gets sent back.
So while we were on last time, Senator Elliott was on the radio, and he stated that a second COVID-19 shutdown order would be unenforceable because who's going to go to a restaurant and say you're closed down?
Well, normally that would be the job of the
sheriff.
That would be the job of the chief law enforcement officer of the county. But as we well know, the chief law enforcement officer of Baldwin County, Alabama, is more than willing to not enforce any orders by the governor. Although he said during a hearing that he would, he publicly pronounces that he won't because it's good for his political image.
Do you agree that this is the equivalent of Dukakis in the tank?
No, of course
Elliott
not.
wasting fuel, flying around looking at wreckage after when he's supposed to be meeting with the governor. She was there, and he's flying around with Ainsworth because he's peed in his warm spot with her over that bridge debacle.
I wouldn't equate it to Dukakis in the tank. That was a campaign blunder, is what that was. That'll go down in history as one of the worst campaign missteps in history. But I would equate it to the Queen of France, who said, "Let him eat cake."
There was testimony this week before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Mr. Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, all those clowns. I thought we might watch just a little bit of that because there seemed to actually be one member of the Senate who happens to have his wits about him. And I'd like to listen to his line of questioning because I thought it was probative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm glad to hear both of our witnesses today say that Section 230, that they are open to reform, because I think it's fair to say the internet has outgrown Section 230. And while we've made some modifications when it comes to terrorism and when it comes to child exploitation, I think there's more to do. But
it's kind of like the Patriot Act. We got to look out for the little children while we infringe upon everybody's rights.
I think the question is going to be how this regulation is going to come to pass. I know there's some, including on this committee, who suggest that maybe we ought to create a private right of action so that individuals can sue over claims of violated rights on your platforms. I think that's one form of regulation. It's called regulation by litigation, but it's certainly not my first choice. It's not optimal. And I don't think it's something we ought to be embracing in the first instance. But I do think it's critical that each of you and your counterparts work with us to try to come up with something that will.
I'd just like to throw out something to totally intimidate you and then dismiss it.
Will address the concerns. And the basic concern I have is it's hard to know exactly how to classify your business model. It's we have a provision in the Bill of Rights protecting freedom of the press, But yet here, while we would never let the government regulate what the press writes or doesn't write, essentially we are allowing private companies, which are now de facto public forums, to regulate that speech. And I'm no more comfortable delegating those decisions to you than I am delegating to you my vote.
So Raines, please unmute and let's talk about this for a second. Section 230 indemnifies platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and it basically says you're not a publisher. You're just providing a platform and you have terms of service that people have to agree to, like anti-harassment, bullying, those types of things. And I understand where this guy's coming from. Deplatforming, driving people off their platform. I'm of the opinion that all speech should be protected, whether or not it's harmful to other people or not. And that's just my personal edict. Now, these guys have been enjoying the protection of this provision, and they have run afoul of the political system in this country. Do you agree?
To a degree, yes.
And so, what do you think the solution is?
I think the solution is. I think the solution is for government to stay out of the regulation of communication like that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Those are companies that operate on a global scale. They are publicly traded companies, in some cases private companies. Social media companies can do whatever the hell they want. They aren't going to be regulated by a government. It's just in the same way that the government can't step in and say, well, you can't, Walmart can't sell guns, or, oh, wait, the government does regulate a lot of that stuff.
There you go.
God. Now, wow, wait a minute. The government regulates who you can sell alcohol to. And oh my gosh, and the government regulates who you can sell firearms to. And cigarettes. Oh my God, the government regulates who you sell cigarettes to. Holy crap. Could the government possibly step in an overreach and stomp on civil liberties in the guise of regulating for the common good? Holy crap. So all you people that are in favor, that all of you folks that are in favor of them stepping in and throttling Facebook and Twitter and Instagram for making disparaging remarks about politicians, make sure you're holding your signs and ready to flip them around that say, let's push for a national mask mandate. Let's push for national lockdowns and all the other stuff that you're against. Figure out what side of the liberty line you're on.
All right. Well, I got one more for you. Might just put you over the edge, Raines. Let me know if you've heard this before.
Has led several protests after the police killing of Tamar Crawford, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor. Governor Ron DeSantis has drafted so-called anti-mob legislation. Critics say it would allow armed citizens to shoot people they suspect of looting during protests.
It's so complex and it's so open the way they have it even written. So, it almost seems like it's a clear dog whistle to people that it's like a clear call to vigilantes to go out and do crazy things.
Earlier this year, we saw a driver run over a protester in Pensacola. In this proposal, it would offer immunity to drivers who claim they unintentionally killed or injured a protester blocking traffic.
Oh my God.
Well, Mr. Rushing, have you ever heard of anything like that quite in your life?
My God, I thought you were kidding.
I'm not.
No, I haven't. I think it's fantastic because here's why I think that. Laws apply to everyone, not to one specific group. So if the state of Florida wants to make it legal, wants to legalize vigilantism in the face of a mob, that's fine, because I'll be in line with my car, registered in the state of Florida, ready to run down the first parade that I see, ready to run down the first group of people standing outside the Capitol in Tallahassee that I see, knowing that they looked like a mob to me, and under the law, I'm protected. Horse shit.
And somebody surely will do exactly that.
Hope not, man. Come on.
All
right. So I want to talk about another what's good for the goose is good for the gander story. So we've talked a couple of times about Clearview AI. Their First Amendment theory threatens privacy and free speech as well. This is a special project between Slate and the University of Arizona State University, Emerging Technologies, Public Policy, and Society. So, Raines, are you familiar with this company at all?
Yes.
And so here's the rub. Clearview AI went onto every social media site that it could find, and it scraped. When I say if you are on the internet and you are listening to this on Facebook, every image you've ever posted to Facebook has been scraped by this company, has been put into a facial recognition database. And because they were ill-gotten information in violation of the terms of service of both Twitter, Facebook, and everybody else that they scraped these images from, they knew that they couldn't market it to the public. So guess who they're marketing this to, Raines?
Agencies that are paid for by the public.
Bingo. So, and this is what's funny. So back in March, when we found out, the New York Times actually wrote an article about this back in January, and I've been trying to keep my ear to the ground on it. Interestingly enough, it does have an Alabama connection. One of Luther Strange's operatives in his office has been hired to do marketing for this company and make introductions into law enforcement around the state of Alabama and in the Southeast. And if you want to go read the article on Slate, which I suggest you do, there's a good bit of information about that on there. And if you just go to Wikipedia and look up Clearview AI, there's all those Alabama connections are in there as well. So typically, the facial recognition software that Interpol uses and all these other folks that they use at international border crossings, they need a good straight-on passport photo of you. But Clearview AI, they have so many images that, I don't want to get too much into the technical aspects of it, but let's just say that you can use facial recognition software on things like a particular vehicle. And when you have it hooked up to a CCTV system, you can actively track everyone who's on camera in your network. Now, if that's not Orwellian bullshit, I don't know what is.
Agreed.
I expected more outrage from you, dude.
Well, I mean, there's outrage on many levels. First of all, the theft of images, if that's indeed the case that happened, and they scraped those images, that's theft of intellectual property. And why aren't the social media companies pursuing actions legally against this company? Because there's something tells me that they were in consort with that company, and that they weren't ill-gotten, and that they were freely given or given in exchange for something. I don't agree with facial recognition technology. I think it's an imposition on the liberty of Americans. But at the same time, companies are going to do what companies want to do. And I don't want my tax dollars going to pay for facial recognition software, because I guess that makes me the non-law and order kind. But that's where I'm at.
There's been a case that has, I think it's 45 days total. The state of Mississippi, and we talked about this back in April, I believe it was, there was a push in Alabama for people to go on Amazon and sign up so that their Ring doorbell could be so that law enforcement would have access to it 24/7.
Right.
Which, of course, that secures your property, but the guy across the street now has law enforcement looking at his
Camera that looks at him, right? Right.
So anyway, this has been going on for about 45 days, and it's still not decided in Mississippi. But you talk about creepy big stuff, and so think about this: if it's public, or hackable, it's possible that people could be alerted to the presence of law enforcement activities. Right? Works both ways.
That's true, but let me throw this out there. Harry, how many Ring doorbell systems do you think exist in neighborhoods that have a positive and rising high crime rate?
Not very many.
Probably none. Zero.
None.
This is a legislative attempt at appeasing the pearl clutching suburbanites.
Hey, when you got too many cops, when there are enough, they can sit around and watch everybody's Ring doorbell.
They're not going to watch Ring doorbell because cops, while maybe not the most versed in all things logistic or intelligent and otherwise, police departments are not going to dedicate task forces to watching Ring doorbells. If anything else, it would be an algorithmic type program that pays attention to activated Ring doorbells that are in the system, which in itself has its own logic problems.
Or if the sheriff just wants to know if I'm at home right now, he could just log into my neighbor's Ring doorbell and take a look.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely.
I don't trust these assholes with a potato gun, much less this technology.
Agreed.
Okay. So, Chris Krebs, the cybersecurity guy, Homeland Security, guess what, Paul?
Fired, doing his job. Damn it.
Via Twitter.
I tell you, if you do your job and you talk about it, and you say,
Rains and I talked about him last time.
Yeah,
and,
you're gone, buddy.
And I was like, should have taken money on that bet.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And who was he appointed by? He was under which administration?
He was senior counselor to the Secretary of Homeland Security in 2017, and he was appointed the Assistant Secretary for Infrastructure Protection by the acting director of Homeland Security. I don't remember exactly which one that was,
but his position also covered cybersecurity.
Correct.
And his failing was declaring that this year's presidential election was one of the safest in the history of democratic elections in the United States.
Correct. From a cybersecurity standpoint, yes, he did declare that. He said that his office has kept thorough records on it and paid close attention to it. And he said, this is what my office did, and they did their jobs correctly. And because he presented fact, he was fired by the current administration because the current administration does not trade in fact.
So you guys y'all remember that TV show with the commission in it called The Shield? Where they had a special unit and they were all just corrupt as all hell.
Well,
so apparently Baltimore had some similar rogue police unit that brutalized, robbed, and falsely arrested residents, and a couple of guys were getting $8 million out of the state over it.
Yep,
they should.
Well, what they ought to do is those guys ought to go do the same amount of time in the with the same people in general population.
I bet people would be shocked to know how many people in Alabama are in jail innocently.
Well, hey, I know one guy who won't be telling any tales.
Oh yeah.
Suspect shot and killed in Cantonment after driving towards deputies. Oh, but guess what? It is Florida, so the Florida Department of Law Enforcement will investigate. Right. That, see, Paul, they don't have their own bullshit little major crimes unit that investigates police mayhem. You know, I'm gonna investigate you, Paul, and then we're gonna go drink a beer this afternoon, and I'm gonna come around and we're gonna go plant food plots this weekend together.
Right.
But it's my job to investigate whenever you're involved in something untoward.
That's what's going on in Baldwin County, folks. They investigate themselves, report to themselves, and never give you any accountability as to what happened.
All right.
None.
So back to national news range.
That's why they're in court.
Self-declared President-elect Joe Biden calls on Congress to act immediately to forgive student loans. Immediate $10,000 forgiveness on student loans help people. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole quote, but the important thing about this infographic is where people fall on the income spectrum and who it's really going to help. And of course, we see the top and the top quarter are going to get the majority of the benefit out of this. So I don't know who it'll help a lot of people.
The top quarter, but is there a dollar value equated to that as to what the top quarter owes, or is it just a top?
Now that information I don't have, but I do have a bit of insight. The last time we talked about this, I said that it would be a crushing blow to the federal student loan banks that hold it, because I was under the impression that this was a blanket forgiveness of student loans. And I was incorrect. And I'll be the first to admit when I'm wrong, because it happens so seldom. But there is already a student loan forgiveness program in the United States, and has been for many, many years. If you serve in the Peace Corps, if you serve in the if you work for the AmeriCorps, if you work for the U.S. Department of Defense, if you work for the White House after you get out of college, you can qualify for student loan forgiveness through public service. That does exist. Now, that doesn't mean they just wipe your slate clean. You have to have made X amount of payments toward it and be current. And there is a public service loan forgiveness program. And it's been going on for 4 decades now. And you're able to do that. So knocking 10 grand off of everybody's student loan is not going to hamstring the U.S. government. There's checks in place to offset that. Now, would it cost a little bit more? Yes. Would the notion of forgiving a portion of student loans across the board affect every American taxpayer? Minusculely. To the same aspect as if the same sort of thing would happen if they put a tariff on salt. It would raise the price of salt 2 or 3 cents. So, yeah, that sort of impact.
Instead of funding education, we're just going to forgive student loan debt this one time. Brilliant. So, Mr. Rip, it's time for the Rip Report, and
well, plenty going on there.
Let's start with the cover story. Do you mind?
Okay, we can do that if you want to.
So every single weed initiative passed on election day. Arizona, Mississippi, Montana, New Jersey, and South Dakota all passed measures to legalize cannabis. And the cover story this week is related to the likelihood of medical marijuana passing in Alabama. And in particular, there's a compassion law that is being pushed by, is it Senator Ball?
State Representative Mike Ball.
Mike Ball.
Right. Who in the beginning, many years ago, did not believe that this was a good cause. He's changed quite a bit since then after doing a lot of his own research. And the Compassion Act would set up a commission to regulate medical cannabis. The bill would allow for cannabis to be used in pill form, gelatinous cube, suppository, or in oil, nebulizer, or a patch. Does not allow cannabis to be smoked, vaped, or consumed in baked goods. It may change. The House might make changes, but I hope that it will go to a vote. This is Melson speaking. I think that the governor will sign it. She's very open-minded about science, and she has been open about COVID quite a bit. That is true. Jay Garrigan, executive director of the Alabama Cannabis Industry Association, said there's a good chance that the current bill is amended to help the cannabis-related industry in the state. One of the aspects of the bill that might change, he said, is virtual integration. As written, the bill requires the grower to also process and sell the product. A change would make it easier for the industry to operate within the state, and it looks very promising. It comes to passage of the legislature. She does expect it to pass. Now, this might even go on to a referendum to be voted on or whatnot. This is a very, very good article. And let me say about Lagniappe articles, I'm just summarizing them very, very briefly. You need to read the whole article. I did go to Montgomery last year. Harry did as well. And we watched this get all the way up to
Senate committee.
So hopefully this time it will go ahead and go through. It speaks of a family here in Madison, Alabama, who had their child, Lenny, was having like 100 seizures a day. So they were trying to use medical marijuana, couldn't use it in the state of Alabama. So they moved to Portland, Oregon, and the change in the little girl's life has just been remarkable. And this is due to cannabis. So we're hoping that the medical marijuana ad will helps a lot of children. There's a lot of other forms too.
So I'm a detail guy.
Yeah.
And one of the details that I don't like is that they are going to have a limited number of dispensing locations allocated. And that sounds to me like something highly desirable and ripe for a bribe. Do you agree? I mean, why not let every if a pharmacy in Alabama wants to distribute cannabis as a medicine, which it would be under the law, why not let any pharmacist that wanted to dispense it do so?
Harry,
I would agree with that.
Well, I agree with it too, but you're both overlooking the fact that we're talking about Alabama. I mean, there's the rub right there. They're not going to go the easy route, what's practical or anything. They're going to make it as complicated as they possibly can make it.
All right, I want to talk about
if they really want to complicate it, what they could do is rename part of it, and it'd be great. I especially like the part where you talked about it could be available medicinally through pill form, gelatinous cubes, or suppositories. I think that's fantastic. They ought to call the suppositories sessions. So they can say, don't worry, Sessions is going to shove that marijuana right up your ass.
Well, like Harry said, every single marijuana bill across the country passed. And here we are again, folks, watching Mississippi outperform us for medical marijuana. Now we're going to be looking to Mississippi to try to figure out what to do here.
Speaking of rather having to shove something up my ass than go to this particular place of business, you're from Texas, Range. You knew what was coming when they put a Buc-ee's on the Foley Beach Express. Well, since day one, it has been the biggest traffic cluster that anyone has ever seen. It's located way too close to the off ramp for the interstate there. And they're claiming that they're fixing the problem, that no state money's going into it, except they're expanding the side, the 2 new lanes coming off of the Foley Beach Express onto, what is that, 161 County Road 61? 161. Sure. Damn. I used to have them all memorized, but all kinds of things are taken from us as we get older.
Also in Lagniappe, let the good times roll. Will the good times roll amid cancellation? City updates and Mardi Gras procedures. It's by Dale Leash. Sandy Simpson. Ultimately, this is a public health issue which falls within the jurisdiction of Mobile County Health Department. It will continue to keep you informed of any new information so you can continue to make the best decisions for your organization. And also, the city of New Orleans, Mayor LaToya Candle's office wrote that Mardi Gras parades of any kind will not be permitted because large gatherings have proven to be super spreader events of the COVID-19 virus.
All right, so let's talk about this for a second. Right now,
super spreader.
We have, so besides the Million Trump March, which I thought was the most irresponsible thing I'd ever heard of, and then we'll get around to let you beat up on Fairhope for a while. But what in the hell? I mean, and you have certain public health officials are saying, don't go home for Thanksgiving, you know?
Yeah.
Like serious stuff that's seriously going to affect people's lives. And it doesn't matter if you travel from here to Portland, Oregon to see your grandma, you're coming into contact. There are all these vectors, and people need to stay their butts at home.
And the thing that they're concerned with, of course, is when you have these events, you have people coming in from all different parts of the country that haven't been exposed to each other. And there lays the problem. Now, a super spreader event, we just had one in Fairhope last night, lighting of the trees. And they had people going around trying to give people masks that were not wearing masks. And a lot of them refused to put the mask on. And there's about 2,000 people out there. And who did they bring? All of their children. So, I don't know. It just defies common logic. They could have had a parade, a car parade, and safely driven by while the lights were turned on instead of gathering 2,000 or 3,000 people, which now we will wait and see what happens with that. We have Thanksgiving on top of it. So
I got to ask Raines a loaded question. I'm sure Texans are doing way worse stuff than this, right?
Oh, sure.
Like, give me a run of the mill. What's going on in your little town? Are y'all having Christmas lightings and all this kind of foolishness?
No, of course not. Tell you what we are having, though. We are having every bar in Montgomery County is able to be open now if they have some semblance of food. Guy I know owns a bar that I used to go to. He sent in pictures of his crock pot to show that his bar serves food. He's been given permission to open at 50% capacity. That bar right now.
It's all nuanced, man. There ain't nothing wrong with that.
That bar is as busy now as it was pre-pandemic. No masks in sight. It's packed every Friday night. That's the Texas way of dealing with it. I've come to this insufferable conclusion about government recommendations and government regulations to control the spread of this pandemic. Nothing the government does in any way, shape, or form to try to curb the spread of this pandemic is going to work. Nothing.
Because not as long as people don't buy into it.
Yeah.
That's the point. People have demonstrated, the American public has demonstrated its unwillingness to buy into any form of national movement to stop this pandemic because the overwhelming majority of Americans don't care about anyone but themselves. So I say, do what you want to do. Go to the Greater Gulf State Fair. Go to the bar. Go have fun. Do whatever you've got to do. I don't care. I'm for liberty. I'm for freedom. But you know what you don't get to do? You don't get to blame anyone but yourself. When you come down with it, when your kid comes down with it, when your mother goes into the hospital and has to die through a window, while you watch, you don't have anybody to blame but yourself. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
All right, I want to deviate just for a second. And while I have Raines on the roll, there was a article in the Lanyap Beltway Beat by Jeff Poor, and in which he defends Tommy Tuberville. Tommy Tuberville was not wrong. And Raines and I beat this horse pretty well last time, but I'm going to let you have your moment, man. Go for it.
So the insufferable Jeffrey Poor, who is incidentally who is in charge of the Breitbart TV network and occasionally writes columns for Yellowhammer and for the Lanyap. And I applaud both for having a counterpoint. This person
which issue
wrote that Tommy Tuberville wasn't completely wrong about what he said. The thing is, what Poore wrote about wasn't so much that Tommy Tuberville was wrong. It was that it's not going to count against his political capital that he was wrong, because the people in Alabama don't care that he was wrong. And on that point, Jeff Poore is 100% correct.
Absolutely.
Now, Jeff Poore can stand up and defend the errors as much as he wants to. I don't care. I think it's ridiculous. National socialism is about as socialist as Jeffersonian democracy is, Mr. Poore, if you happen to be watching right now. And I'd welcome your public comment and debate on our program regarding that very fact. Secondly, just because Tommy Tuberville pulled a Bluto and got the branches of the government wrong and got what we were fighting World War II over wrong, you're absolutely correct. It's going to give nothing but firepower to him, because he's going to show how the left came after him. And people that are the left-leaning socialists of the state of Alabama came after him for being wrong about something involving history. And that's going to give him political power. That speaks to a much, much, much deeper problem. People that know the facts, people that know history, people that are educated, people with an IQ above 75 are now demonized by you and their senator. Think about that.
All right.
So, yeah, let's talk about Alabama Power Company for a second.
Good old Alabama Power Company. Again, in Lanyap, serious violation. Alabama Power fined for air emissions at the Plant Berry by Gabe Times. We've been reporting to you quite a bit about the Plant Berry. And I tell you, it just makes me, you read these articles over and over again, everything that is happening. And it's almost like you're getting ready for exactly what is predicted. I have to take hats off to Mobile Baykeeper and Cade Kistler for the work that they are doing, because they're not getting as much support as it is. The article says that toxic release inventory data for Plant Berry show they released 30,000 pounds of hydrochloric acid last year through the stack emissions.
And let's talk about this for a second. So hydrochloric acid is something everybody's familiar with, because it is the active ingredient in household bleach.
Right.
And it's actually a gaseous form. If you open up the Clorox and take a whiff and you don't burn your nasal cavity, that's hydrochloric acid reacting with the moisture in your sinus membrane.
Right.
Anyway.
And the 30,000 pounds of hydrochloric acid, these tests are only done on a per quarter basis. That means that
so what volume of air does it take to contain 30,000?
Yeah,
that metric of volume.
Well, that means that there may have been hundreds of pounds of chlorine released in excess of the permit limit during the quarter, even if there was only a slight violation. Without all the data on operating time and load, it's impossible to say exactly how much hydrochloric acid was emitted.
So since we're not
in excess of the permit limits.
Right. So it's a spot check, and that one spot check detected this amount.
Right.
We're not saying we were watching a gauge and it spiked at one point. We're just saying when we looked at it, it was at this.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And then another article's major sanctions, those that have been following the 9/11 directors placed on 90-day suspension after DUI arrest by Gabe Times after a disciplinary hearing. Monday, the board of directors of the Mobile County Communications District handed a 90-day suspension to Director Charlie McNichol.
Isn't Charlie from Baldwin County?
I think he is, who was arrested by Daphne police. Now, see, what Charlie should have done is called the tax man, Chris Elliott. He could have told him how to get out of that DUI. It would have been no problem. Chris has got the way, man.
Listen,
I think Chris's wife works for the sheriff's department. Think that helps any?
it may have something to do with it, and
Yeah,
being a
that
state
might.
senator and
Yeah,
all.
Yeah, it might.
But
It
look,
might.
he was passed out at the wheel, right? This wasn't like he got pulled over. He was on the side of the road or in a parking lot. Isn't that how it reads?
I didn't read the whole thing. That's why I'm suggesting to
Okay.
people to read all of these articles. I'm just summarizing them as we go through. But you know, he should have called Chris. Chris could have got him out of it. I'm telling
Well,
you.
and not to make light of it, you never know what the guy's going through, and it's his second brush with this, right?
Well, he better be glad that he wasn't in Fairhope, because they would have got him for sleeping in a car too.
I forgot about that being
That's
an
right.
ordinance.
That's right.
Thank God he passed out in Daphne.
That's right. You better not have a fight with your wife in Fairhope and go sleep in the car. You're going to jail. Next is weighing the risk. Here we are again with COVID. You know, article after article, as the vaccine nears, COVID transmissions remain a threat. By the chief medical officer for USA Health, Dr. Michael Chang. Our concern is that with Thanksgiving, with the travel that's being associated with Thanksgiving and the bringing together of circles of people that may not always spend time together on a daily basis, there may be an increase afterwards. Guarantee you, check on that, folks. That's what's going to happen.
Well, Mr. Holmes, what leads you to that conclusion?
Yeah. We'll just wait and see. Now, here's another one that it's a little bit more complicated, and I really am a little bit reluctant to get into the details of it, so I hope people will follow this. This is an article by Gabe Times that now this is the third or fourth follow-up article. The long game, court records may confirm a no-bid statewide e-filing contract. This is where Lieutenant Governor Steve Windham had told Lanier,
Former Lieutenant Governor,
currently
the most powerful lobbyist in the state of Alabama, representing Alabama Power Company and anybody else with two nickels to rub together.
Right. Now we're finding that potentially $100 million contract ended up being given for no bid.
And his wife is the presiding judge of the Court of Criminal Appeals in Alabama.
Welcome to Alabama, people.
And the contract is critical infrastructure, which or the underlying substance of the contract is alleged to be critical infrastructure, and that was the shield that they used for all these years not to disclose the details of the contract and how much money everyone was getting. Did you have a total on that? Did you see that total? They're guesstimating that they figuring 64 million since 2010.
Right.
In revenue.
Now it's 64 million. Well, as it says, while an exact dollar amount is unclear, information provided by the AOC indicates the contract may have been worth up to $100 million since 2010. AOC's 2014 annual report declared Alifile, the system that allows court documentation to be filed electronically, had already brought in $192 million in the first 4 years.
Hey, so how about this? I hate to interrupt you, but I don't want to forget this. No, I don't. So I go in the clerk's office. I was in Fairhope. I had to go down for some kind of hearing, and I had a notice of appearance that I needed to file in the juvenile case. Well, at the satellite courthouses, they only have 2 ladies. And so I tried to file it, and she said, "What's my understanding, we're not supposed to take these anymore, and that you have to use the electronic filing system." And I was like, "Oh shit, no." Of course I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. I think not. You're telling me they're just going to shut down the clerk's office? I'm going to have to use Alifile? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well,
that Steve Windham gets a third of every dollar I put into the machine.
Well, the online information system, out of that 192 amount, gets 33.3% of that money, or roughly $64 million. AOC has not made available the numbers for the intervening 6 years. So God only knows what kind of money that is. And it's the irony of it is, here we're talking about our judicial system, court system, and everything else. So even as corrupt as it is, the filing system now appears to be just as corrupt as the whole court system.
So Raines, I gotta tell you a funny story. So this is a roundabout range Russian story, so y'all bear with me. So when I was 31 years old, I was hired to be the county manager for Etowah County, and my position was created by a federal judge who said your form of government is illegal. You can no longer have an executive who is elected. You must appoint one. So that was my job. So anyway, a lot of little things you do for your employees. And one of the things that I wanted to do was be able to have a Christmas party. You know, guys that worked on the road crews didn't even know people that worked in the commission office for 20 years. And I wanted the employees to get together, but you can't use public money for that. So I said, well, why don't we let the county commission designate the vending machine proceeds to go towards this little party? So I called Buffalo Rock. Guess who the damn proceeds from the vending machines were going to? One of the former county commissioners who was in federal prison. They were sending the damn check to his wife. All of the vending machines and all of the county buildings, that 10% was still like 5 years after he went to prison, is still going to his wife. You can't make that shit up, man.
Oh, you can't.
That is the level of sophistication that these people have, the level of nuance and detail they've gotten down to, so they can steal from us. All while saying it's a secret and they can't tell us what's going on.
That's why we're number one.
I've seen this many, many, many times over many, many years, and this won't be the last one. And I'll go ahead and say this. Not one hair on his head will be damaged by this. There's no shame in the man, and there's certainly no shame in the Ethics Commission.
No, Ethics Commission is an absolute total joke.
They should just call it the Alabama Commission. Just take the ethics right out.
Correct. Also, every week in Lagniappe, you can read Damn the Torpedoes. That's by Rob Holbert, where he's stuck in the middle this week, and Hidden Agenda by Ashley Trice, How Full Is Your Cup? There's also articles on music events, things like that are happening around the county. And you can believe that there is no other printed available paper other than one that is out of date once published, other than Lagniappe. So hopefully you'll pick it up. It's distributed free, or you can get it online. Another publication that I read occasionally has been the Courier. Years ago, we had an editor over there we called Chuck E. Cheese, and he's left. He was replaced by Guy Busby. And I must say, I've read several of Guy's articles recently, and they're fair and accurate about what's going on in Fairhope, and not very biased at all. One of the things he wrote about recently was the Fairhope clock. Any of you that have been following that's been a Jack Burrell fiasco of all times. This is the smallest piece of property in the entire city of Fairhope. Now they're up at around $600,000 when they could have moved the clock about 150 feet down in front of the visitor center. But now they're having to do a soil test.
Let's talk about that for a second. So Raines, they buy this corner where this clock is, and it turns out there used to be a filling station there,
which they said they didn't know about. Some of them didn't. And mayor did.
Wait, first, let's back up. First of all, there was a group that wanted to build a boutique hotel here, and after getting jammed up by the locals,
blackmailed by the council,
he goes, "Fine, buy it from me." So how much do they pay for this little slip? It's like 1,500 square feet. It's not big enough to put anything on.
$525,000.
And they're going to spend another $500,000 getting the damn contaminated soil out from under their main intersection.
Oh, they already had to pay to get the tanks out, which half the council didn't even know the tanks were in there. And they were supposed to do 28 samples. And if it hadn't been
did Burrell go to Trump University to learn how to negotiate?
Oh, he's, I tell you, man. But Richard Johnson, the city public works director, went to ADEM and talked them down from 28 samples to 1. So let's hope that one sample for 30.
We don't want to saddle the people of Fairhope with having to decontaminate property that they just bought.
Right. Now,
We just need a small sample from over on the corner of the property to make sure it's not contaminated
Right.
with benzene and all kinds of other shit that'll make your teeth and hair fall out.
well, after complimenting,
Let's do it on the cheap though.
after complimenting the Curry there and Guy Busby, and letter to the editor, it can be written to anybody, but they recently, the Courier printed a letter to the editor from no other than Howlin' Rains. Howlin' Rains is back. Any of you that have followed Fairhope's historic municipal pier, where they have a waterfront project that has been so distorted by a few people that it is absolutely incredible. Mr. Rains boasts quite a bit about his credentials. However, he leaves out the fact that he was fired from, what was the New York Times? For
He's the one. He's the
No
one.
relation, by the way.
He was the one that had the who was the editor and had the rogue writer who just made shit up for a couple years.
Yeah.
He had to leave over that.
But anyway, Mr. Rains, true to form, very first sentence. At the start of their new terms, Fairhope's two top officials agree that former Mayor Karen Wilson's plan to bulldoze the historic park at the municipal pier is dead. That is absolutely total bullshit. Never did they say they were going to bulldoze the whole park at the municipal pier. Never.
High-stepping turkeys, and you know what to say about a high stepper.
Well, the thing that then Mr. Howling Rains goes after the firm of Goodwin, Mills, and Kaywood, the local architect, Christian Prius, department heads Director Richard Johnson, and Community Development Director Jessica Walker, who served as a public cheerleaders for Wilson's unpopular plan to re-landscape the South Beach Park and dump fill dirt in front of the 32-foot bluffs. I mean, to tell you, man, this guy is unreal.
So, Rains, this historic bluff right here used to have a damn train track running down it. And if they'd have had a D2 bulldozer back in those days, it wouldn't be a bluff at all. It'd be a slight slope down to
Rains,
the water.
The park was built by grading away what they're calling the bluff.
The historic bluff is covered with slash pine trees that somebody planted 25 years ago.
Also, people need to understand that this is a $6.2 million federal grant. This is one
through the Restore Act.
Through the Restore Act, one of the ones that former Mayor Wilson was able to get through, and they have criteria. You can't. This is for stabilizing the banks and doing certain things. So, to look at this,
wink.
Yeah, right.
We're making some improvements while we're stopping erosion. Wink, wink.
Well, one of the things that is Mr. Howling Rains goes after is, for his part, Burrell described himself as adamantly opposed to the new beach and also insistent that parking around the fountain will remain.
Because that'll bring in the unwashed masses and homeless and trying to sleep in their cars and shit down there.
Well, the other thing, too, is that Burrell and Mayor Sullivan are supporting the fact that Richard Johnson and Community Development Director Jessica Walker, that they have a little bit of a bullseye on them. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I've known Richard Johnson, not personally, but I've known him to be working for
Please
the
don't
county.
say anything nice about this man. He's going to get his ass fired.
Yeah, isn't that the damn truth? But he's worked for the county. He's worked for the city of Fairhope. He's probably one of the best employees in the city of Fairhope. So I guess his head's on the chopping block.
You shall not pass!
Now, here's one of the other things I do. Mayor Sullivan said that she was aware of the Douglas design jetty system at the Grand Hotel, which are regarded as effective but unsightly. That is what he's proposing, she said. That is not what I contemplate. You can't have anything that's ugly in the bay. The bay, the bay
The
is
beautiful,
this is the same
call it watercolored bay.
This is the same bay that Mayor Kant and Mayor Sullivan now used to work for, polluted the bay and caused all of the infrastructure problems. So, I mean, it just goes on and on.
And the truth of the matter is, people, there were a series of meetings that were held.
Oh,
anyone interested could come and throw their 2 cents in about what they wanted their waterfront to look like in Fairhope.
Right.
And it was made a political issue when it was totally unpolitical. And here's the follow-up by their paid political writer, whatever you want to call him.
Right. And this is a transient resident. He appears and disappears. He never went to any of the meetings.
Hey, Paul, thank God for this genius Yankee come down here and tell us what the hell's really going on in a town where you've been telling people it's totally corrupt as hell for 20 years.
I know. Thanks,
Mr. Raines, for explaining to us that they've set Mayor Wilson straight and all the people that showed up and participated. All that just goes out the window. How many hours you think you went to meetings on this, Paul?
Okay, and listen,
10?
I went to several. I went to many, over 3, 4, I think close to 500 people participated in the first programs. It was very, very much publicized by the mayor, community.
Hey, did the mayor get up there and tell people to sit down and shut up?
No. And none of these people, the council never even came to the meetings, folks. The council never came to these meetings. Now, what Mr. Howling Raines is telling us is that he likes Mayor Sullivan and Jack Burrell's approach about informing the public. Are you kidding? That's the thing they absolutely do not want to have happen. Here's what's going to happen.
I'm
folks.
sorry. That might be the best line I've ever heard.
I'm telling you. Now, here's what's going to happen, folks. Over 500 people have already participated in all these meetings. However, now Mayor Sullivan and Jack Burrell are saying you have till the end of this month to write in some comments, and they are going to determine what happens down there at that pier. Now, overwhelmingly, the people wanted the beach and they wanted the rock jetties that they were doing. And I can tell you rock jetties work. Sure, they're a little bit unsightly, but they do work, and they'll protect the pier, which, by the way, right now, all of the electrical, plumbing, and everything else at the municipal pier is laying in the water next to the pier. So you think they need to do this? This is, look, folks, Howling Raines is howling. That's it. Pay attention to what's going on. But I'm telling you, wait and see what happens with this waterfront. They are going to determine what they're going to do, and they're not going to prove to you what the community came up with, what people really want. Now, the problem is this. The last mayor accomplished more than probably any mayor that's ever served in Fairhope. Her list includes $23 million in grants and restoration fees for comprehensive planning to reinstate Fairhope's future vision for its citizens, adding downtown traffic, parking enhancements, investing in the most valuable assets, and implementing a funded $40 million plan fully upgrading the sewer, water, gas, and electric infrastructure. On top of that, the physical health has been restored by freeing the city from long-term debt. That's what's driving this council and this mayor crazy, is that they're going to work the next 4 years just trying to complete what Mayor Wilson put on the table, and going after Mr. Raines, going after our city employees without looking at bid rigging Jack and what's really going on is disgraceful. And people, all you're going to hear from Howling Raines is, oh, that's it.
The Raines. What's going on in Houston this weekend?
I'll also be writing a Freaky Friday about that.
Not a lot. The city of Houston doesn't have any events coming up. I guarantee you the bars will be packed, the restaurants will be packed, because, as I said before, the average Texas citizen doesn't care about anyone but themselves.
So the White House press secretary held a press conference today at 11:30 or so. She finally got to the podium. It's the first press conference since the election, and
since September 30th.
And so she got out there to tout that we have 2 new vaccines, and she outlined the timeline of all the wonderful things that President Trump has done to lead us to this moment, and the fact that our fears are unfounded, that the majority of these vaccines are going to be distributed through Walgreens.
And correct me if I'm not wrong, but these were independent. They were not federally funded at all.
That's correct.
Okay, so they're taking credit for something that was a private company came up with this. No federal money or anything, but they're up there touting that, oh, we got these vaccines. They're coming along. We're rounding the curve, folks.
So are you trying to say that Operation Warp Speed, that none of that money went to any of these companies?
Well, if it's warp speed, we're in a curve that's about 1 million miles long.
It's the money. Operation Warp Speed is a logistics grant. It's money for distribution of the vaccine, not development. And that's been made clear in every paragraph of the act. So it's Pfizer and Moderna, none of those got federal money to develop the vaccine. They developed the vaccine in their labs using their own budget. Now,
how can you take credit for something that you had nothing to do with, other than you said, we'd like for you to do this?
Oh, that's easy.
This is the same White House that also claims credit for winning this past election.
Right.
Go figure.
Which we will have to wait till
December
14th reigns. Isn't that when they finally will maybe tattoo it on his head that he has lost?
December 14th is when the electoral votes are due. We'll begin voting. We'll begin opening them on the 8th, but the 14th is the deadline.
Tell me, so Georgia called the election this morning, certified for?
No, the Secretary of State miscalled it this morning. They said that we have certified it. He got out a little ahead of his Commissioner of Elections. Commissioner of Elections says we'll certify it later today, but we haven't certified it yet. Yes, they are going to certify the election.
And what was the difference in votes after the recount? Do you have that on the top of your head?
I don't have that off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, I don't either. So, Mr. Rip, how about you? What you got going on?
Well, I'm just trying to stay up with what's happening around Fairhope and in Baldwin County, and I must say I am in the, it appears, slim minority who believe in the virus. I believe that this election is the first time, this presidential election is the first time in my memory where we are seeing an attempted coup of a bona fide election, and people are believing things that are, well, the thing that gets me is everybody was Fox. They believe Fox. Lock, stock, and barrel, they believe Fox. Now, all of a sudden, Fox is saying, well, this was a legitimate election and Biden did win. Oh, well, hell, we ain't going to watch Fox anymore. We're going to have to find somebody that will perpetuate this and keep it going. So that's what they're doing. But
Parler is where I suggest they go. Look.
I would think that probably in this area, I would not doubt that the majority of the population believes this. So I think I'm probably in a minority when it comes to believing these things. I also
don't worry, Paul. Jeffrey Poore made sure to announce to everyone that people like you who don't believe propaganda and people like Harry who are borderline geniuses are all in the wrong. So don't feel bad. You're not alone.
The thing, the global warming is the one that really gets me, is global warming, because I keep hearing people saying, well, people couldn't affect the climate in such a big planet.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And population right there, if they believe that we are not polluting our own planet.
So here's the thing. Right now, there's a burn ban in Baldwin County. There's always a burn ban in Alabama from, rains like June,
Yeah,
November
it's the beginning
1st.
of summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it makes sense because of the humidity. There's nowhere for the smoke to go, and people would, people with moderate asthma would be dropping like flies. How do
Well, there's
just compound that with, let's say we had 5 berry steam plants going. Let's say we were as densely populated as Houston, Texas. What would our air quality be like then? Whew.
it's I've got to say, for burn bans, they are set out for public safety more than anything. So, they're actual measures that prevent people from doing things to endanger others by their own carelessness. Oh my God! Is that an infringement on liberty? Is a burn ban an infringement
I was looking at the TV behind me.
personal liberty? Holy crap! Patriots of the United States, raise up against burn bans, for crying out loud. Burn bans first, pornography second. By God, we're going to take them all down.
So when this new Florida stand your ground, run over a protester law passes, do you think a bunch of 16-year-olds are going to go buy their first car and drive to Florida to help people?
No, I don't think so. They'll still keep buying guns with their stimulus checks, like the Kyle Rittenhouse, and they'll keep going and showing up to get their chance to shoot somebody, by God, because that's what they want to do. That's what they all want to do. Keep that in mind next time you see one.
Just remember, Benjamin Franklin said, "I'll give you a republic if you can keep it."
Absolutely.
It's the keeping it part that's the trouble.
To piggyback on something I said earlier, I just verified some information. Governor Raffensperger of Georgia and the Secretary of State will announce at 5 p.m. at a press conference today that the election is certified.
And so there's already been a recount. Does he have any more recourse in Georgia?
No, the state's going to certify the election.
Yeah, but he's going to call for a recount of the recount of the recount.
You can't.
Then he's going to run into Al Gore trouble and run out of time. All this stuff's got to be timely.
All right.
All right. Well, y'all have a good weekend. I'm going to leave you with a little Gore Vidal.
Okay, well, wait a minute. Before you do that, I want to warn everybody in Fairhope now. You've got a howling wolf running around out there. So if you happen to see him, just give him a high five and a howl.
It's feeling. I mean, after years of pretending that I had read all of Aristotle, I finally did. And may I say, his politics is just as good to read today in the 21st century as it was in the 5th or whenever it was that he was a rather lousy tutor to Alexander the Great. And what he does, he reviews every democracy in the course of the section of the book called Politics. Every form, trying to figure out why they all failed, one by one, whether it was Crete, whether it was Athens, whether it was the Periclean period. It's brilliant stuff. You can't read it unmoved because it's our life too. And we're very much part of it. We had a wise old bird called Benjamin Franklin, who's always caused much distress among the other founders because he was immoral. He kept a mistress in Paris. He was coming out of the hall in Philadelphia where the Constitution had been put together. This is 1789. And an old lady, who was a friend of his, said, "Well, Ben, what are you going to give us?" He said, "We're going to give you a republic if you can keep it." And then a bunch of young men had been hired by the governors of the Constitutional Convention. They didn't trust Franklin because he talked quite a lot and he was rather sour. And these kids just came up behind Benjamin Franklin in the streets. Said, "Mr. Franklin, why are you so down on this Constitution?" He said, "Well, I'm not down on it. You are very up on it, as I can see. But he said, you know, every constitution devised by man has failed. Well, they said, isn't that a little bit pessimistic? Why couldn't it succeed? Why does it fail? He said it fails because of the corruption of the people. And he did not exempt any of us from that.